Pigweed here. Today we review a lager and ask, is the United Nations still relevant? Ben.
Hey, Pigweed.
Hill. How are you doing?
I'm all right. How about some beer and conversation?
Well, that's pretty good.
Oh, what are we drinking here?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, this is a Dunkel. It's a Munich Dunkel from Manor Brewing.
Okay, that sounds very good. I'll have one of those.
So, what's on your mind today?
So there's this. I have written down here Peace Council, but that's not what it is. It's the Board of Peace.
Board of Peace.
So Donald Trump has organized this group.
Peace Train, isn't that what it is?
The Peace Train.
Peace Train. Yeah.
To deal with like the post-Gaza Israeli war situation. It's got all the relevant parties.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well,
shouldn't the UN be doing that?
Isn't that what the UN
isn't that
was
the
designed?
job of the UN?
And so if it's not, then what is it doing?
Right. Why do we need the UN if it's not even doing these basic things?
That's right. I mean, I would have thought that that's really what it's there for.
Pretty obvious. Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, so let's get into this.
Yeah.
This is Manor Brewing, a Munich Dunkel. A Dunkel is a lager, and it tends to be a slightly darkish lager. And usually kind of malty. What do you got?
Gosh, it is malty. Probably, yeah. So this is a kind of a copper color, and it's got some of those dark Munich malts. What else do we have in here? Wheat. A little chocolate malt.
Chocolate malt. That's right.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Interesting German hops. It's got Hallertauer Mittelfuhr or whatever that is, and then Hercules, which I've never seen before.
Hercules.
But this is delicious.
It really is.
Very well done.
Yeah. This is just this is a local brewer down over in Howard County.
Yeah, not far away, and I like it. It's very well done. I love the color. I love the flavor. It's one of these beers that's not the crazy craft beer thing where they take some flavor and they push it way too far.
Right.
It's still within a reasonable realm.
You know what? It's probably a good beer if you're a BMC guy and you're going, what is all this craft beer they're talking about?
Yeah, try a Dunkel.
And you already like a Yingling.
Sure.
You already like a Yingling or a Modelo.
Yeah.
Dark Modelo.
Right.
Yeah, something like a Dunkel.
Try a Dunkel. Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good introduction into other beer styles. Right. Yeah, very good. All right, excellent job, Manor Hill. Okay, so the United Nations. What is this thing? What is the United Nations?
So there was a thing called the League of Nations.
Yeah.
Like after World War I, the last war we're ever going to have.
That was the war to end all wars.
Right, end all wars. I don't think they called it World War I at the time. They weren't planning on any more world wars.
What kind of naivete does it take to think this is the war to end all war?
It was because it was so devastating. They're like, we're never going to go through this again, except for like 25 years. And so we've got a League of Nations, and I guess because we had another war. Yeah. And
people said the League of Nations didn't quite work.
So I said, but we still need something like a League of Nations.
Yeah. Why? Why do we need something like a League of Nations?
Because the world's getting smaller, and we need international cooperation to head these things off. So when we have brewing conflicts, it's not just between the two conflicting nations. You have a worldwide consensus to say, stop doing that. Yeah. And
see, I think that's like a fundamentally flawed idea. I mean, there are things that we absolutely need international consensus on. Like, for example, what language do pilots use when they speak to air traffic control?
I was listening to something about international shipping laws.
Right. Yeah.
It was like, all right, so we've got a 12-mile boundary, and then we have a 200-mile boundary, and then everybody has to fly a flag, and but you could just have a council, a international maritime council that only deals with that one thing.
Right.
And which is where our maritime laws came from.
There are obviously things that need global cooperation.
Yes.
You can't have everybody having different rules about everything, right?
The world's getting too small. Yeah. We gotta agree on some things.
You gotta agree on some things. So you have to have some sort of a rule-making body for that. But the idea that some universal, earth-wide body is going to say this country can't fight this country, sorry, how did it stop Ukraine fighting with Russia? How do you know what did it do?
Let me give it some credit here.
Okay, all right.
Actually, not some credit. Let me give it some explanation.
Okay, some explanation.
So there are 6 organs, principal organs, like 6 matters that it deals with. You have the General Assembly, the Security Council, the Economic and Social Council, the Trusteeship Council, the International Court of Justice, and the UN Secretariat.
Okay.
So these things all have different international roles, and we don't hear about most of them.
You just got to mess up every podcast, don't you?
Yeah, guys, she's so beautiful. Get out of here, kid.
All right, get out of
here. But the one that you hear of most in terms of conflict
Yeah.
is the United Nations Security Council.
Yes.
All right? And there are 15 member countries,
Yeah.
5 permanent members,
Right.
and 10 non-permanent members.
Okay.
And these 5 members are...
United States, China, Russia, England, and France.
Yes. United Kingdom.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
And then the other 10 are you get 2-year terms.
Okay.
Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba.
And the five permanent members have a veto power.
There you go. That's the crux of the matter,
Yes,
right?
that is the problem. Because if you have worldwide conflict, like for most of our lives, most worldwide conflicts were U.S. versus Russia kinds of conflicts, right? So if the U.S. could veto it and Russia could veto it, then what could they do?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Or you get something, we condemn Israel in this thing, and then the United States says, okay, we don't.
We're not going to do that. Right.
So,
even though there are 45 Muslim nations in the UN and they all vote a certain way, that the United States just vetoes it and nothing happens.
And nothing happens. So even when they do agree on something, you know what they get? A strongly worded letter.
Yes.
And the fact is,
there's no teeth.
Well, yeah, hold on, I've got a good one here. Where's my quote? UNGA resolutions, in effect, merely statements of intent expressing an internationally agreed upon position. They are generally not enforceable by law. And then here you go, the UN secretary, he's like, we have no carrots and no sticks.
Also, I would
no carrots and no sticks.
I would disagree with the universally agreed upon. Just because, like, they have a vote, and it comes out in the majority, okay. But some teeny tiny country has a vote, and
Fiji gets the same vote as the United States.
Yeah, right. So like, you're trying to say this is an internationally agreed upon thing? No, it's not. It's just you had this weird procedural thing where a bunch of people passed this resolution. It doesn't represent the will of anybody. It doesn't represent the will of the country. It just represents the bureaucrats who happen to be at the United Nations.
So that the thing we started with, the Board of Peace,
right,
to address this one matter,
right.
I'm like, that's like, so a corporation, the Widget Corporation,
right,
PNC Widget Corporation,
yep.
They don't have like a council to solve all problems.
No.
What they have is they go, you know what? Our widget deliveries are not where they should be.
Yeah.
We're going to form a task force of the relevant people who know something about widget delivery.
Yep.
We'll bring them together to solve this problem. Hopefully, when they do, we can disband this thing and then move on to whatever the next problem is. There isn't like the international PNC problem-solving corporation.
But the United Nations, being a bureaucracy, is the opposite. Because if I'm put on, okay, here I am. I'm some minor functionary in the Belgian government, and I get appointed to some task force, some board, some whatever on the UN to study the effects of blah, 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 blah. that's a cool gig. I want to keep that going so I can put all my kids through college and retire, right? I don't want to solve a problem and be done.
Right.
I want to keep this thing going as long as possible so I can suck off the teat of the United Nations for my entire career.
So the malaria club, which you're in charge of,
right?
They're saying they're not necessarily incentivized by solving the problem.
What do they get if they solve the problem? They lose their jobs.
They might get a pat on the back.
They might get a pat on the back, but they have no incentive to solve anything. They just have an incentive to keep things going. This is the problem of bureaucracy. Every bureaucracy exists to perpetuate itself.
Yes, exactly. Nobody. So the how about like the $24 billion that was lost in California to solve the homeless problem when the NGO is paid like per head of how many homeless people are. You don't get paid by how many homeless people are off the street.
Right.
You get paid by how many are on the street.
And frequently the kind of money that's spent on things like that, if you had bought every one of them like a trailer to live in, you would have solved the problem, but you didn't. Actually, you wouldn't.
You wouldn't. But you'd have you can at least show that there are less tents in front of restaurants.
Yeah. Look. We built this place with 24,000 mobile homes that these people can move into. That's what we spent the money on, and they're not doing it. They're not moving.
No, we're not even seeing that. So this kind of got on my radar when I saw that the United States is withholding its payments.
I saw that,
and they're like, well, we can't really. So I've got some numbers for you.
Okay.
That 2025. Let's see. The U.S. paid 22% of the UN budget.
We are always being taken to the cleaners. Always. Everything is always us being suckers. Why is that?
Well, Mr. Trump does not like being taken advantage of. As the businessman. Yeah. From the various. Well, actually, 30 years ago, he was talking about the tariffs. He's going, we're being taken to the cleaners on this. Before he was a politician.
I know.
He was like, I think we're getting ripped off here.
Yeah, we are getting ripped off all the time.
What do we get out of NATO? What do we get out of the UN? Mm-hmm. And so, let me see.
What percentage of the UN budget you said 22% of the UN budget we pay?
Yes.
Like, why 22? Why, we're one out of 270 countries.
It's also the peacekeeping budget, which is somehow separate.
Yeah.
They pay around 26% of that.
Right.
Although, look, I ain't gonna lie to you here. I've got China at 20.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
and then followed by Japan 7, Germany 5, the United Kingdom 4, and France 4.
Okay.
But we were just like, what are we getting?
What are we getting out of what? Can you think of anything in your lifetime that has been a benefit to you from the UN?
I mean, but is that just the budget? But we're also, how about the building itself?
Right.
And the administration to just keep this thing running. We got to pay all that. Oh, and guess what? We also pay for all their parking tickets.
Right. Because none of them, they all have diplomatic immunity and none of them pay.
With diplomatic immunity, this is minor, but, or is it? UN officials have racked up $16 million in unpaid parking tickets. And London is owed £100 million in congestion fees. You guys can have this building. Let somebody else administer this to do what? To hold meetings and occasionally have a strongly worded letter. Yeah. Now, how about we have 11 active peacekeeping operations going on in the world?
Okay.
Did you know that?
No,
I didn't either.
No. So blue hats.
Yes, those blue hats, which are just like targets.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that a young man who signs up willing to die for his country can just be compelled to go to Congo Does he have to volunteer to?
I don't know. I mean, that's the bad thing is once you sign up for the military, they own your life. And they tell you to go someplace, you go someplace.
But can they? I don't know the relationship between the U.S. Army and the UN and our contribution to the UN.
I think if they tell you you're going here, then you're going there, and that's just the way it goes.
All right. So here. You know where we are. So here's Africa. Majority of the missions.
Right.
That's Central Africa. We've got the Congo, South Sudan, Western Sahara. And some other place.
If they're so good at getting peace, why haven't they got any peace between Ukraine and Russia?
Your job is just like to stand there with a blue helmet between two people who want to shoot each other.
So this is the criticism of that whole thing, is that the UN does not bring about peace. Once peace is brought about by some other thing, the UN goes in and stabilizes it or takes credit for it or something like that.
Right.
They never actually cause the peace. They never actually negotiate the peace. They never actually go in and say, you're going to stop fighting because if you don't, we're going to kick your ass. They just once there's peace, they put peacekeeping forces in there.
Yeah. So Donald Trump says he's stopped 8 wars. Let's just say he's negotiated conflicts.
Right.
But anyway, because he has carrots and sticks.
Yes.
If that's not what the UN is for, if the UN had no part in 8 conflicts in 1 year being brought to an end, then good God, what is it good for?
Okay, because it came out of this mindset that if reasonable people sit down and talk and come to an agreement about things, then that will solve all the world's problems. And that's so stupidly naive that you just get a bunch of people talking and saying, oh, wouldn't it be nice if everything was raindrops and lollipops and blah, blah, blah. That's what the UN is about, talking. But what actually brings about peace is you're going to stop doing this or we're going to destroy you.
Right.
And the UN has no power to do that.
No carrots, no sticks. So what are the? How about?
So now there are some
things. How about
things.
The Human Rights Council?
Yeah, exactly. I am very critical of the UN, but there are certain things that it does that are legit. Like for example, disease eradication. There was a successful 12-year campaign to eradicate smallpox. And they've reduced polio cases by over 99%.
Now, this is different than the WHO.
Yes. That's part of the WHO.
But is WHO part of the United Nations?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
So there are certain things like trying to manage pandemics. Obviously, we have to have some international body to do things like that. Now, whether it should be the UN or not, okay, somebody has to do it. Somebody has to be in charge of things like what we mentioned before, rules of the road in the seas, rules of the road in the air. There's other kinds of things that have to be done.
But like I said, but was the UN involved in what the rules of the maritime rules that we've agreed to?
I don't know. Maybe they just inherited it from a previous, because probably the Brits set the maritime rules 200 years ago, and everybody else just had to do it.
But that's now something that you would appeal to the UN about.
What I'm saying is somebody has to be in charge of that, right? I mean, you have to have somebody, and maybe it's the UN. There's also telecommunications and like things about
space,
satellites and all that.
How many satellites can go up at
right? So there are things that you need some sort of worldwide body to control. That's fine. I agree with that. The problem is that they pretend to do a whole lot more than just those things.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I like the individual task force approach. Like there's this smaller body that is not part of some gigantic body.
Right.
That's all we are, just like the Space Council.
Yeah.
We are the maritime people.
Yes.
And I think once you bunch it under
you're just making a huge bureaucratic mess. Why do you need that? If the goal is all the ships have to obey certain rules about flags and what channels. Okay, fine, you can do that. Why does that organization have to be part of this grand UN thing? Why can't it just be the Maritime Board?
Yeah.
That works. Or if we're talking about satellites, why can't there just be a satellite board? Why does it have to be part of this stupid organization that doesn't seem to do anything,
But cost us $1 billion
but cost
a year.
us all this money and create all these weird things. So that we have the international. There are other things that the UN pretends to do that are very much more questionable, like the World Court, the International Court of Justice. So the International Court of Justice gets together, they have their mock trial or whatever the heck they do, and they say, we find that blah, 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 blah. Does anybody care?
Right. Did they come up with that Netanyahu was
a war criminal? Yeah, of course.
Is that the World Court?
But do they do anything useful? Do they find that
is there any enforcement mechanism?
Right. The guys in the Congo are doing some horrible thing. Okay, so we issue a strongly worded letter and
stop doing that.
I know. So this International Court of Justice thing is just nonsense. You can't. I
don't even know what when they say international law.
I know. What does that even mean?
What does it even mean? It's like, so you mean like the international police are going to come in if you violate it and put you in the international jail?
It doesn't mean anything. Because if the UN Court of Justice came out and said the United States had to do this, that, or the other thing, we'd just thumb our nose at them, as would every other country in the world.
Yeah, they're right. They're going, I have my own country, and what goes on inside here, that's kind of...
It's none of your business. Yeah. So there are a lot of things that UN tries to do, which in some vague... butterflies and lollipops
performative way.
It sounds like a good idea.
It feels like we're addressing a problem.
Yeah, but it's totally nonsense. It doesn't do anything. And here's where I want to bring in Thomas Sowell.
Thank you.
Thomas Sowell says organizations should be judged by their incentives and results, not by their intentions.
Yeah, that is just the simple wisdom of Thomas Sowell.
Yeah, it's like. Okay, you want to bring about world peace. Lovely. What have you actually done?
That's great.
And what incentives are you actually operating under? That tells the whole story. And the reality is that they haven't done anything. And we have the problem of the moral equivalence. This is another Thomas Sowell critique. Is the UN grants equal standing to democratic nations and to brutal dictatorships.
Yes, you'll get the head of the Human Rights Council. Is going to be
Saudi Arabia.
President of Saudi Arabia.
Right.
And well, it's their turn. We got to rotate this thing around. So.
Right. Yeah. And then so even in the attempts to help. Like there's a famine someplace. So they come in and they bring in free food from the World Food Program.
Yeah.
But then what happens is they're bringing in all this free food and that destroys the local farming economy.
Mm-hmm.
Because the farmers are like, why am I planting crops for next year if they're getting free food from the UN?
And you just undercut the value.
You undercut the value of farming, and then you're actually ending up hurting the country more than you're helping it.
I saw one where you had these charitable groups, Christian groups in the United States, sending clothes into Africa, and then all the local textile
went out of business. Right.
It's like this is such a. Everybody feels so good about sending these. Yeah, they're all used clothes. You know what I mean? That's why you see a ride in Africa somewhere, and somebody's got a Madonna 1985 concert T-shirt on.
Right. Yeah.
Because it came from, and then the local guy just trying to sell a shirt.
Trying to sell a shirt, he can't do it because he can't compete against free. And that's the problem. Is that your intention? That's a lovely intention. You want to help people. That's fantastic. But does it actually work in the real world?
Yeah.
And frequently it doesn't.
Right.
You think that you're going in and you're helping things, but actually what you're doing is undermining local businesses and causing a longer-term dependency and problem.
All right. Well, would you like to say something nice about the UN before we? Unless we've got to do, you might have some more material.
It's a nice building.
It's a nice building. It's got all his fancy flags.
Yeah.
All right. I did my parking tickets problem.
Right.
And I did UN peacekeepers. Let me see what I have over here. I've got. Would you like to? So we've got our 5 permanent members. Would you like to hear who the non-permanent members are currently now until?
Okay.
We've got Bahrain, Colombia, Democratic Republic of Congo, Denmark, Greece, Latvia, Liberia, Pakistan, Panama, and Somalia.
And why do I care what any of those countries say about anything? I mean, this is the big thing. This is my big criticism of the UN. It's like, okay, the UN makes some declaration. And I'm sitting here thinking, why do I care?
Yeah.
Like, why does it matter to me in the slightest what the UN thinks about anything?
Yeah, so the Human Rights Council is divided up. There's a president and a bunch of vice presidents because we have divided the world into African states, Asia Pacific states, Latin America and Caribbean states, Western European and other states. Somehow Western European includes the United States. Eastern European states, and each of them is on this Human Rights Council board, which is currently run by Indonesia, and our
the Human Rights Board is run by Indonesia,
and our 4 vice presidents are Ethiopia, Estonia, Ecuador, and Spain.
Yeah, great.
And
so the UN is the only place. The UN is the only place where it makes sense to them that you could have a Human Rights Council run by countries where, like, there's genital mutilation, or women can't drive, or that's the sort of garbage you get out of the UN, and that's why Americans are skeptical about this.
Okay, so have we addressed the relevancy matter here? What side have we come down on, do you think?
Relevancy?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
I mean, how important is the UN to world matters?
I don't think it's important at all. Let's separate out some of the functions that it does.
Oh, yes, some of the functions.
Some of the technological functions, things like regulating rules of the road for ships, and there are certain international things that there have to be standards, and okay, so those things, let's give them the benefit of the doubt that they're doing that kind of stuff, okay? But in terms of, like, peacekeeping and international law and all that other kind of stuff, nothing. They're absolutely irrelevant. And
yes, I think
the Ukraine-Russia war is a perfect example of why they're completely irrelevant. The UN hasn't been able to do a thing.
I don't think the UN has had a single word to say about the matter, except for we don't like it. I mean, only the United States is going in there with any kind of sticks and carrots. And
because if they tried, then Russia would just veto it.
Yeah.
If they tried to condemn Russia, the Russia's going to say, "No, we don't condemn Russia."
Oh, darn.
Yeah. It's like the whole thing is kind of absurd. We have to have some level of worldwide cooperation on some small things, but it's just trying to do too much.
But yes, they're trying to do it's bureaucracy out of control. That's why individual task forces we need international cooperation, but it can be on a case by case basis.
Trump's Board of Peace is probably going to do more for peace than the UN has ever done.
Right. And you're saying, and they're like, I saw somebody complain that they're like, this is the group that you're going together. I thought he was trying to replace the UN. I didn't realize he was just focused on this matter. I'm like, why is it so filled with a bunch of Middle Easterners? Oh, I see. They're just trying to address the Gaza situation.
And that's the way it should be. Yes.
I don't need Fiji weighing in.
Exactly. Why does Japan have to have some vote on the Gaza situation?
A separate board of peace for this situation.
Yes.
All right. Board of peace.
Yeah, board of peace. Thanks so much for listening to Beer and Conversation with Pigweed and Crowhill. Remember to visit us at pigweedandcrowhill.com or send us an email at pigweedshow@gmail.com.